And good afternoon. I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News, coming to you again from our digital base here at 19. We want to have a conversation about December 7th. That is the date that recreational weed is supposed to go legal in Ohio. That's because Ohio voters passed issue 2 in early November. But as we heard from Republican Governor Mike DeWine, he wanted to get some regulations put in place, some rules, how things are going to be set up, how it's going to be regulated, perhaps even some changes to what voters put in. And that's what's been the struggle over the past month. And here we are with just 2 days before we get to that date. And we're seeing both the House and the Senate offer up some changes, some regulation ideas. And in fact, the Republican-controlled Senate, a little bit more conservative than the House, is asking for some major changes. They want to ban the fact that people would be able to grow weed at home. In issue 2, it said you'd be able to grow 6 plants per person or 12 plants maximum per people in a household. They also want to change things like the potency of the weed, reduce it from THC levels in plants from 90% to 50%. In the extracts, they want to take it from 35 to 25%. They also want to change how much we should be taxing the sale of weed from 10 to 15% and change where some of that money goes. In all fairness, I did reach out to Senate Republican Rob McCauley, who is behind a lot of these proposed requests. Have yet to hear back from them. But in the meantime, we're going to welcome in House Democrat Casey Weinstein. He is from District 34, which is Summit County, sort of the area between Cleveland and Akron. Representative, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Great, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us. Let's first start with what the Senate Republicans are pitching. Some pretty drastic changes, not allowing people to grow weed at home, changing what it's going to be taxed at. What is your initial response to what the Senate Republicans, even though you're in the House, to what they are pitching?
No, that's my initial response. They are basically putting forward a wholesale repeal of issue 2, which is a law that was sent to us from the voters with an overwhelming bipartisan majority. They could not have been more clear in what they were telling us, which is to move on this issue. Unfortunately, the Senate GOP, which live in districts that they have designed and drawn for themselves to insulate themselves from the public will, are not used to having to answer to the voters. So unfortunately, they've moved forward with a bill that is essentially a full repeal of issue 2. It's a non-starter for me. I think it's a non-starter for many in the House on both sides of the aisle. And I'm thankful to say that we're working on our own version of the bill that I am confident, at least at this point, adheres to the spirit of the will of the voter.
And of course, anything that would pass the Senate would have to go back to the House, have to pass the House to then go on to get a signature from Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. Even just saying all that tells me there's no way we're going to be ready by December 7th. So what happens?
Well, issue 2 goes into effect. And guess what? I'm okay with that. So are 57+% of Ohioans. Marijuana will become legal. Personal use will become legal. We still have a multi-month period where the Commerce Department will be drawing out regulations, the licensing and for the retail sale, wholesale, and illegal market. So that won't be done on day one. But personal use, home grow, that will become legal thanks to the voters.
And it's been an interesting vote. It's been an interesting month. There are some changes that the Senate Republicans want to make that I'm going to be devil's advocate here, almost sound like common sense. For example, wanting child-safe packaging, wanting to ban any edibles that resemble animals, fruits, or cartoon characters, things like that. Do you at least support that, or is that going too far?
Oh, no, absolutely support that. Of course, there are some common sense safeguards and regulations that we can put in place, honoring home rule, outlining where, like, alcohol and tobacco folks can smoke, protections for children, just like alcohol and tobacco, which is how the issue was sold to voters. So 100%, those are things that we're going to be offering on our side too. I draw the line is when you get to the core intent of the will of the voter, like eliminating home grow or tripling the tax rate and pricing people out of the market while fueling a black market or causing people to continue going up to Michigan and sending their dollars and tax revenue up that way. That is a wholesale destruction of the core of the law.
And I want to get maybe perhaps some clarification. And again, you're a little closer to Columbus, fortunately, than I am. When we talk about the tax increase, there seems to be some confusion whether they're going to tax it at 10% or 15%, or if they're tacking on a whole nother 15%. What are the Senate Republicans asking for?
They're asking to go from the 10% excise tax that was included and passed by the voters in issue two to raise that to 15% and add a new 15% on the wholesale cultivating stage, which effectively makes this a 30% excise tax plus 6% sales tax. What we're talking about is a 36% tax, a market killing tax that would basically strangle this new legal market before it even gets a chance to, to steady itself.
So you're suggesting if there's a 15% wholesale tax, then that's going to go down to the actual dispensary, and they're going to pass that on to the user when they buy it. That's your contention.
For that 15% wholesale tax, that in all likelihood, the way things work is that gets priced into the product in the end, and it's the end user, it's the Ohioan, consumer who ends up paying that.
So of the 57% of the state who said yes to issue two, we're going to leave you with the final word. We're speaking with Representative Casey Weinstein, represents a portion of Northeast Ohio, our viewing area. What would you like people to do? Here we have 2 days before it does become legal. At least personal use will be legal. Home grow will be legal for the time being. It's not like medical marijuana dispensaries are going to open their doors. So as far as the sale, the licenses, that won't be done. What do you want people to understand? What do you want people to do as we get closer to Thursday?
You've got to continue communicating to your representative and your senator and telling them, if you're part of that 57%, that wide majority that passed issue two, tell them that that's what you meant and reject any wholesale changes to the law or any strike down of the personal liberties or privacies or freedoms or protections that you voted into place, because that is what some in leadership in the House and the Senate may be considering doing right now. So it's important that you communicate again, especially over the next week or two, with your representatives to tell them exactly what you wanted to see when you voted yes.
Excellent. Representative Weinstein, we certainly appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Take care, sir. Again, just delving further into this issue, we've been on this for the past month. Detailed reports from multiple staff here at Cleveland 19. What does it mean? What's going to happen? And this is just the next step as we watch the lawmakers in Columbus try and wrestle with issue two and get something on the books. We're going to keep on it all the way through. If we have any other breaking news, it'll be right here on our digital platforms. Remember, we start 3.5 hours of news coming up in about 45 minutes on Channel 19. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News. Have a great afternoon.
19 News is everywhere. Download our CTV apps and follow us on social media at Cleveland 19 News.